What we want to do now is we want to make your offer so irresistible that your customer will feel like it's a no-brainer to want to give you their money. But to do so, we have to first understand the concept of perceived value. Now, perceived value is just how much your customer thinks your product or solution is worth. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. How much your customer would value your product or service, or how much they think that it's worth. And value itself, or how worthy your product actually is subjective. And this example here will tell you exactly why. So if you think about it, a bottle of water is always just going to be a bottle of water. This bottle of water could be your core offer. What you're actually providing, the service, the product, it's just a bottle of water. Now, if you give this bottle of water to someone that's lost in an island and they're trying to survive and the sun is really hot and they're super dehydrated, they would value this bottle of water much more than a person that's just sitting on their couch normally at home and they have access to a tap with free water. So can you see what happened here? It's the same exact core offer. It's the same exact thing. It's just a bottle of water, but someone that's stranded on an island that's about to die if they don't drink water will be willing to pay you much more for that bottle of water than someone that's just chilling out at home, that has access to a tap, has a fridge, and they can literally just get water anytime they want. And this is the idea of perceived value. So value itself, or how valuable your product is not an objective thing. It's a subjective thing. Meaning one person will value your product at a different price than someone else. For example, you wouldn't try and sell mowing services to someone that lives in an apartment, because the person that lives in an apartment probably doesn't have a lawn for you to have to mow, right? So the value of your service is different to someone that lives in an apartment that doesn't have that problem to someone that does have that problem and has a really big house with a really big yard that's been getting really long grass. So the idea is you want to maximize the value of your product in the eyes of your ideal customer. And that's what we're going to do in order to make an irresistible offer. Because generally when it comes to people making a buying decision, fundamentally what they're doing is they're comparing the perceived value of their product, or how valuable they think that product is to them, to the price that you're charging for the product. If you're charging less than the value they see in that product for themselves, they will happily give you money because they're going to benefit from purchasing that product, because they think that they get more value than the amount of money that they pay you. So for example, in this instance, if we have the bottle of water priced at $200, the person that's lost in an island that might be a millionaire might be willing to pay you up to $2 million for that bottle of water, because that's how much they value it subjectively. So when you price it at $200, because the price is lower than the amount of value they see in your product, they will 100% buy that bottle of water from you. Now, the opposite also stands true. If you were to price your product higher than the amount of value your customer sees in that product, then they would not buy your product. So if the perceived value in the eyes of your customer is less than the price you're charging, they're going to say it's too expensive and they wouldn't buy it from you. So if you've ever had a sales call and someone says the product you're selling is too expensive or your solution's too expensive, I'm okay, I don't want to go ahead, what they're technically saying is that the perceived value that they see inside your product is less than the price that you're charging them. And in this example, as you can see, if we have the bottle of water priced at $200, well, the person that's just sitting on their couch would only pay up to $2 for that bottle of water, because that's how much value they see in that bottle of water. So when you say, would you buy this bottle of water for $200? They're 100% going to say no, because their perceived value is smaller than the price that you're charging, and so consequently they think that your product is too expensive. So as a business owner, in order to increase the number of sales you make, you have to always be thinking, how can I make the perceived value much larger than the price? So mathematically, there's two ways that you can achieve this. You can either increase your perceived value or make the offer more valuable in the eyes of the customer. Or what you can do is you can reduce the price of your product or service. In both instances, that difference will increase, and so the customer will be more likely to purchase. Now, reducing the price isn't a good strategy, and I'll tell you why. Let's say there's 3 different AI automation agencies, and all 3 of these AI automation agencies are selling lead generation solutions, and all of their solutions are exactly the same. So in the eyes of this customer, they think that all 3 of these solutions are literally the same thing. So the perceived value that they have from these 3 different agencies is going to be the same. And so the buying decision will be made based off who has the lowest price. So then this person might say, I will charge $100 for my lead gen solution. This person might say, I will charge $75 because it wants to be cheaper than this person to make it more likely to get the sale. This person down here might say, I will charge $30 for this lead generation solution, come and buy from me. So in this scenario, what will happen is the customer will go with the option that brings them the biggest net between perceived value and price, meaning the option that has the lowest price. This agency here. But can you see the problem? Can you see what is happening here? Everyone is selling the same solution, but the only way they're competing with each other is reducing their price. This is what we call a race to the bottom. At what point can you not reduce your price anymore? At what price would providing the product or service not even be profitable for your business? You can't run a successful business that generates enough money to grow by only competing on price. Let's say if you have to go down to $30 to sell an AI automation solution, at that point, you're better off just getting a job at the supermarket and working for $30 an hour. So you can't build a defensible, growing business by competing on price. If you're trying to price yourself less than your competitors in order to win business, you might win business, but you won't actually win in business. You won't actually be making money. You won't actually be growing your business. You'll just be getting clients. You're just going to have to fulfill multiple projects, but you won't actually really ever get to a point where you're making enough profit that you're actually deemed as a successful business. And another thing that you guys should also know is that in any line of business, your goal shouldn't be to have as many customers as possible. Your goal should be to be making as much money as possible. Now, dealing with 5 customers that pay you $10,000 each is much better than dealing with 500 customers that pay you $100 each. Because logistically, dealing with fulfilling 500 clients and keeping them happy and doing everything is very, very difficult. So your goal shouldn't be to be cheaper than your competitors. Your goal should always be to have a more valuable offer than your competitors. What you want to be fine-tuning for is perceived value. You want to make your offer be perceived as value as possible inside the eyes of your ideal customer. That is how you build an irresistible offer. Now, another thing that's pretty cool is that when you optimize for perceived value, what ends up happening is, let's say, for example, if 3 agencies are selling lead gen solutions and there is a customer that wants to choose between the 3, the offer that you have will be different to these 2 agencies because you fine-tuned the offer to sound different, to put you in what we call a category of 1. And we're going to be touching on that a little bit later on. But because your offer is different to them, and because this person values your offer much more because it's fine-tuned for that specific customer, what you can actually do is you can charge more than what these people charge. So let's say if this person is charging 100 and this person's selling the same thing but charging 75 to make sure they get customers, you can come in and charge $300 because your service or your product isn't even in the same category as these people. It's a completely different offer, and your customer would feel that this is also a much better offer with much more value because it's fine-tuned to make them feel that way. So you can charge higher than your competitors and technically be still offering the same core offer. You'd still be selling lead generation solutions, but your offer is framed differently in a way to make your customer think it's much more valuable. Now, I'm not recommending when you guys are starting out, start with charging insanely high prices. What I'm saying is we're going to be making an offer that is going to make your customer feel like it is a no-brainer for them to want to give you their money.